Perfect. Alright, what's up, you heathens and demons, you sinners and saints, you beautiful blasphemous bastards. Starting this a little bit earlier, I wanted to address a couple things, and then I'm going to shoot Danny the link. Yes, Atheist Jr. This is Phil Talk Danny. Shouldn't be anything too, I don't know, it shouldn't be too confrontational. Danny's going to come and give some of his favorite arguments for atheism, against God. He was on the channel a couple times, and he and John Peterson has some bad blood. John doesn't like Danny at all. I don't know Danny that well. I've seen him on a couple streams. And both times Danny was kicked because John doesn't like him. I didn't feel like it was for any reason that like Danny deserved to be kicked. So I wanted to have Danny on for a one-on-one, just with me and him, so we could have a conversation. And yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of streams where I'm like, yeah, I could really go at this dude. I've seen streams where I'm like, I like some of the things he's saying. So I think it just all depends on the approach he's taken in the conversation. But I've only seen a few of the conversations he's been in. I am going to shoot him that link here in just a moment. He does have things to do. We were going to try to do this yesterday, 7 o'clock last night, but I had to go to work. I have to work today, and he's got things to do. We couldn't do it at noon because he's got things to do. So I'm going to shoot him the link soon, get him in, and we're going to get this conversation going. After the conversation with Danny, I'm going to actually do a live premiere of the new video on the new channel. Let me see. I'll go ahead, and if you're not subscribed to the new channel and you'd like to be, which, you know, it is Sunday, so there's not too many people here yet. But if you're not subscribed to the channel, let me actually click the link. Then you can go and subscribe. It's kind of chaotic right now. It took me 2 weeks to put out a new video, but I do expect that to become more routine and consistent. My goal is to get a video out every week. So, real quickly before I shoot Danny the link, I want to talk about what I saw last night, what I talked about last night. I'm still really, really pissed off. I'm not going to lie. I thought maybe some sleep would cool me down a little bit, and it really hasn't. I can't convey the stress that I've been going through for the last several months. When you have theists openly trying to dox you, trying to figure out your personal life information for whatever reasons, they're doing it openly, without shame, and then you have people that will defend it. It's very stressful. You know, the constant attention over on those channels on me is driving people to subscribe faster than they've been doing for over a year now. It's actually really helping the channel grow, but it doesn't help my stress. Now, as I said, you know, I've had this thing worked out with my boss to where if anybody calls me, I don't work there. You know, like if anybody needs to get a hold of me, they have my cell phone number. You know, whoever it be, it's, you know, you know, if it were to be something like, you know, police calling, well, that's a different thing. But then how do you know? Like, police usually aren't going to call. They'll go to your workplace. So, I mean, usually if police are calling, it's not the police. But you never know what's going to happen. Maybe some new person answers the phone and they don't know how to answer that question. And they say, yeah, Ronnie's here. And they put me on the phone. Because, you know, if I am handed the phone, I will take the phone. Because it could be, you know, like if somebody's calling and like I've never actually had anybody call me at work, but, you know, somebody could answer the phone and do the wrong thing. And then my workplace is doxxed. And then what's the next level? When they find out my workplace, what's after that? Try to get me fired. I mean, that's not going to go very far, but trying to call CPS. They've put the Michigan CPS logo on their streams. And I have no doubt that they have tried to call CPS. CPS can come here anytime they want. I'll invite them in for tea and cookies. I don't worry about anybody coming to my house anymore, especially since weed's been legal. That would be the only illegal thing I would have had in my house. And now it's legal, so I don't have to worry about that. CPS were to come here, they'd find a clean home. My daughter has everything she needs, could ever want. But what's the next step after that? So when that fails, they're going to start calling schools. Are they going to start trying to find my family members? Plenty of my family members would have something to say about me. Is that the next step? I cannot convey to you the level of stress that is entailed with theists openly trying to dox you. I flagged all of I've been flagging the videos. I'm going to go through again today before I go to work and flag some more. Doesn't really seem like YouTube's willing to do anything about it. But I can't convey the stress. And nobody that was in that room last night can understand the stress that I am dealing with, as they try to say that I overreact. I didn't go into that side chat saying you had to shut down the stream. I didn't go into that side chat saying you had to kick TomTom out. I simply asked, why is that fucker on your stream? And I want to thank Speed for the gracious email that he sent me. A couple people got it. Until you can walk in my shoes, until you're dealing with the things that I'm dealing with from these people, you can't fucking understand. And I try to put a big boy face on it. But it's a scary thing. Do I think Will and Smokey would do anything too bad with that information? No, they'd probably try to get me fired. But if they reveal that information on a stream, there's plenty of people out there that hates what I say. I've had plenty of emails telling me, I've said it before, what should happen with my kid so she can go to heaven now before I have a chance to send her to hell. There's a lot of crazy people out there. People that will come here and try to do me harm. Will show up at my workplace and try to do me harm. And in the side chat yesterday, I'm going to shoot Danny the link now. So, Danny, if you're waiting for that link, I'm going to shoot you the link now. Oh, he said 11 a.m. CT. I thought we were talking Eastern. What is Central Time? That's like noon my time, right? We might actually have to end up postponing the Danny talk. Because I initially said 12 Eastern. He must have thought I was talking Central Time, because 11 Eastern, I believe, is 12. That's the time I initially wanted to start. But I'm actually into work earlier than I thought it was, so 12 wouldn't have been a good time for me. So, the actual conversation might not happen today. We'll see what he says. I was thinking 11 Eastern. He was thinking 11 Central, which I do believe would be 12 my time. Just an hour away, but I really wouldn't have enough time to actually have a conversation. Usually, if I go in on Sundays, I'm in at 3, but today I'm in at 2, and it's an attempt by my boss to get me out as fast as possible. with my foot issues until I have this surgery. I go through extreme pain. Another thing that's been affecting me the last couple of weeks, I've kind of talked about it a little bit, but the escalation of the pain in my feet has been causing me to have broken sleep. I sleep for an hour, I wake up. I sleep for an hour, I wake up. I don't ever really get any good sleep anymore. Just adds on to the stress. Waiting for life to get back to normal. Waiting for, my life to no longer be in stasis. That's stress in itself. Not being able to be consistent here on the channel, that I've always been fairly consistent. I've always put out a shit ton of content. I've been able to work my schedule to be able to do that, but I don't have a schedule anymore. And I don't know what my schedule is going to be. Stress. Yeah, and you add on top of that, it's bad enough. Like when you do this YouTube thing, anybody that does this YouTube thing that speaks actively against people's religions and their beliefs, you're going to bring some level of response to yourself. And that's something that you walk into this understanding. I understood that I am a part of a demographic that's very small and hated by most believers. That is atheism. I understood that when I started talking against religion, that I was going to get pushback from that. And you even have it in your head that you're going to possibly get, death threats from crazy people. But until it starts happening to you, you don't know how it's going to affect you. You don't know how it's going to affect your mentality. You don't know how it's going to affect you physically. You just have to go through it. And I've been going through it for 2 years now. But the difference now is, before it was just people sending me fucking emails. Now it's theists actively, openly, without shame, doing it live. See if he actually responded back. All right, yep, he's gonna come in. So I'll shoot you the link. So yeah, might have been a little hot last night. Might have been a little angry. But I think I have good reason to be. Am I emotional? Yeah, I can get emotional, but the thing that I've always been is honest. I'm not going to make something up because I don't like somebody. No, he was in that side chat talking shit as they were doing those things. Now, I'm not saying that you have to cancel this dude or whatever. I'm just saying you should be aware of that. Because it could happen to you. And it could be him in those side chats as they're trying to dox you. Because you happen to go against what they're saying. Because you happen to battle against them. And it's Smokey Saint and Will Kincaid, and they're fucking insane. But alright, enough of that. Danny's here. What's up, man? I think, we'll give him a minute to get everything hooked up.
There we go. Can I be heard?
Yep. What's up, man? Yeah, I think, damn time zones every single time. They get me every time.
Well, I took a 5-minute shower because I was a mess, so I'm good for it now.
Damn time zones. It seems like every single time. Here recently it was Randolph, and every single time it's the time zone thing. So yeah, what's up, man? I thought, I've wanted to do this for a while, but I've been kind of in and out of being, on YouTube and being active here. So like twice you've been on my streams, and John kicked you out. And I didn't really think that you deserved it. And I give John a lot of leeway. He's got a lot of power here. But still, like, I do try to run a ship to where if you don't really deserve to be kicked out, you shouldn't be kicked out. So I wanted to give you a chance to come on and have a conversation. I know you offered talking some philosophical arguments against God that you like. But like real quick, like how did the beef with John Peterson start? Like I know it was like over on Speed's channel. Did y'all just never get along that well?
Well, that whole channel is just sort of like anti-Danny, but there's like a love-hate relationship. Because I bring kind of like these arguments against like various views that they hold. and it's a whole saga. It's hard to like. We could spend a whole string talking about it,
Yeah.
but I don't want to do that. But um, I think that I don't want to frame it from my point of view uh, without like the others being here, because I do have, if it, in terms of how we interact, I disapprove of a lot of things, but I don't want to distort
Mm.
their image just because of my approval, disapproval, or my attitudes. So I'm just gonna leave it, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's fine. I know, like John doesn't really talk about it when I ask him about it either. I
Honestly,
just
it's
don't
kind of
like him.
bizarre. The whole thing's a little bizarre to me. But once again, I just don't like the idea of hashing it out on a stream like
Yeah.
without the other party being there.
No, I
Uh,
totally get that. And before we get into like the philosophy, I do see Dragnon is in the side chat. He's asking, is this the same kid who was watching our panel on YFNA the other day? Was that
yes, it is. It
that
is
was
the
you?
same kid. It is the same.
So there you go. There you go, Dragnon. I didn't see that panel, so I'm not sure what happened there. I do know, like, sometimes I hear you saying stuff that I'm like, ooh, I could really go at this kid. And then other times I'm like, I like what you have to say.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
think part of the problem is that I attack anyone atheist, theist, agnostic. If something doesn't make sense to me, or if I feel like picking a fight, it's so whoever's in front of me.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not tribalistic. A lot of people mistake me for being a theist because I attack atheists, and I don't. I mean, I do attack certain like I now there are some people I will talk negatively about, but because generally I like the people and answers in atheism, we just don't see eye to eye, and there's like some weird drama that we could overlook in years. But I don't think I could ever get along with someone like what's his
Nephilim
Nephilim
free.
free.
Yeah.
I could never get along with that guy. Can't reason with him. Not interested in any of what he has to say. I have debated him for a couple hours. There's other theists that I don't get along with, but a lot of people see me, interact with atheists, and they just, you know, there's an assumption that I'm not an atheist because I'm arguing with them. But you wanted to talk about philosophy and atheism, right? Kind of shifting topics here. So I have a couple suggestions for atheists, and then I have maybe we can go over one or two arguments that that will support atheism, or at least arguments against theism. So the first thing I would suggest, right?
Hmm.
Um, the theists, especially apologetians. What do you say? Apologists, right? I
Yeah.
just make up
Apologists.
words. Yeah, apologists. They've done something clever the last few years, right? They What they've done is they've equated atheism and naturalism, and then they've attacked naturalism. When they attack naturalism in their minds, they're attacking atheism. But you see, the problem is that most atheists also believe that when you attack naturalism, you attack atheism. But the thing is that one doesn't imply the other. Atheism does not imply naturalism, and naturalism. This is their fringe views. There's a philosopher named Fiona Ellis who's atheist, but she's a naturalist.
Hmm.
Okay, so they're very few, but naturalism, you have to do some work to get to atheism. So, but definitely atheism doesn't get you to naturalism. Okay, so here's what I would suggest: if you're talking to a theist and they want to say, well, naturalism, blah 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 blah, grant it to them. You can be a naturalist and say, okay, fine, I'll just pretend that, or we can just grant that naturalism is false. Why? Your argument still doesn't go through. Just because naturalism is false doesn't mean theism is true. I would highly suggest this. Don't fall into the trap of trying to defend naturalism when you don't have to.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah, I have seen atheists do that. I'm not one of them. I think that I'm probably am a naturalist, but I've always stated, I don't look into philosophy like that, so I've never really considered it on those terms. Looking into it now, I think that there's, yeah, I'm probably a naturalist, but yeah, I've never equated the two. Being an atheist with being a naturalist, I never really even thought about it. I think about the Bible. Like I'm one of the atheists that became an atheist because I actually read the Bible. So
Yeah. But that's the point is that, like, maybe arguments that show the incoherency of Christian doctrine via scriptures, that's a good place to go. At least it's a better place than trying to defend views that have nothing to do with atheism, you know. But
Yeah.
the idea, so that's the first suggestion. The second suggestion is, I think you should always call out or recognize the difference between arguments and preaching. And most people are good at this, right? But I mean, a lot of atheists that argue with theists just call out the preaching. Say, hey, I'm not interested in the preaching. I just want to focus on the argument. So the idea is that stay focused on the argument. Maybe be as so focused as to focus on one sentence at a time. So the theist is saying something like one particular proposition, one sentence, focus on it. All the preaching on the side, call it out, say, hey, that's not interesting to our discussion, right? The interesting part of the discussion is our arguments, not the preaching. So I'm very against preaching when you're having a philosophical discussion, when you're really trying to get at, does this argument work for you or does it work against me, right? So call out preaching, express your disinterest in it, and then refocus the discussion on the argument. Stay focused. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
and real quick, Dragnon is pointing out, and this is one of the things, like, just to kind of reiterate my point of why I've never really tried to talk about naturalism. Knowing my weaknesses, knowing that I'm not philosophically inclined, I guess would be a good word. I am reading the hell out of some books now. It's kind of what I've done to replace being on YouTube all the time. Is now I'm just reading. Right now I'm reading Plato, the Last Days of Socrates. So I am catching up on my reading, and I am trying to learn. But Dragnot points out, and this is one of the things that I think is one of the reasons why I kind of stay away from it. It is nuanced. There's degrees of naturalism, and it's usually best to if you're going to talk about those things, then to be able to clarify and actually get in depth with them. I think it's important.
Right. And then the last thing, and this is not, I'm not really against the Lactheist movement. I mean, I might have a criticism, but it's not that, I don't think anything really hangs on that. But this discussion between the definition of atheism, I think what I would argue is that no matter what definition of atheism you take, the theist is in trouble. Okay. So just keep that in mind. I think that if I were to give a criticism, the idea is that I'm kind of perplexed that some people reject the existence of Bigfoot, reject the existence of UFOs, reject the existence of Santa Claus, but then they just lack the belief of in God. Now, I'm one of the reasons why I'm here, right, is that I want you to stand on the ground to say, hey, I can reject Bigfoot, I can reject Santa Claus, I can also reject the existence of God, and here are my reasons, right? I think that not everyone is dishonest with the definition of an atheism. I don't really care, honestly. It's not philosophically interesting, but I think there is something weird going on when you're saying you're rejecting all these things, but suddenly when it comes to the existence of God, you merely lack a belief. That's the far as my criticism goes about it. Define the terms you want to define them as. But I think that I think atheists can be justified in their rejection of theism. Okay.
I
So
agree.
that
This is something you're kind of hitting dead on, like my approach since I've started talking to theists here on YouTube. To me, it was always the safe answer to go ahead and grant the premise. Yeah, maybe a God was there at the beginning. I go out of my way not to be that hardline atheist. In fact, for the last couple of years, I've called myself an agnostic atheist. But I am making more of an attempt, especially on the new channel, to be that more hardline atheist and to make that claim. God doesn't exist. And I don't have to prove that to you because you're the one making a claim about an impossibility. You prove this impossibility to me because I don't have to prove an impossibility.
Yeah, Ray, we're here to agree. We do disagree on a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure we do.
Right. But I might think differently in terms of if I'm telling the theist that it's impossible that God exists, I'm ready to give them a reason for why. Now, I understand you take a different approach. I'm not here to like.
Well, I'm trying to change that approach now. I'm trying to be more of a hardline atheist and give my reasons why I don't think it exists. I just laid one out in one of my new videos. I think theists themselves are one of the biggest evidences that God doesn't exist, because there's no consistency there. There's no master of the universe placing this moral will of his upon them, because they're all different and they're all pretty much crazy. Not all of them, but I deal with the crazies.
Okay.
Real quick, but I want you to continue. I'm going to turn my camera off. I wanted to have my camera on for this, but I've got it scrunched up for some reason. I was messing with it last night, and it is driving my OCD crazy, so I can't deal with the scrunched up part, so I'm just going to turn it off. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so what I'm going to do today is basically give two. I don't want to. One is more of an approach, but it will crush a lot of arguments that you hear on from the theistic point of view, and then I'm going to give you an argument for atheism. Okay, so now there are two ways you can argue, I guess, or present a reason or justification. You can give what I guess you could say a philosophical argument, but the idea is that, hey, there's a conceptual problem with what you're saying. You're not saying that there's anything wrong with the observations. You're saying there's something wrong with their beliefs in terms of their concepts are not lining up. Hey, God is good, right? And there's evil. You're starting to give a conceptual problem. You're not doing a scientific investigation. You're not You're not appealing to the data, the empirical data, that is, of the world. When you're saying, hey, if you believe that God is good and that there's evil, well, what does that look like, right? There you're giving a conceptual, philosophical approach to theism, right? Okay, but there are a lot of theists out there. What they do is they present empirical data, or they try to empirical data to substantiate theism. Okay, now there is actually an argument you can give that will destroy any empirical data that the theist attempts to utilize to support their theistic conclusion, right? And here's what it is. It goes something like this: that God is consistent with any data that you see, okay? Because think about this. Like, if you were to close your eyes and imagine, right? There could be a world in which there's no creation, just God, right? There also could be a world in which, God creates infinitely, right? Or there's the world that we have now, or whatever, right? But the idea is that God doesn't have to create. He doesn't have to arrange the world in one way or another, which means that let's say a theist comes and says to you, DNA is complex, it's organized, it looks like a computer code, okay? But the idea is that if there wasn't DNA, right? It's not like God doesn't exist because of that, right? So the idea is that DNA existing in the way that it is, or DNA not existing in the way that it is, it doesn't disconfirm God, because whatever you see, whether DNA or not DNA, is consistent with the God hypothesis. Okay, have I lost you?
No, I'm right there with you. I've dealt with the whole DNA thing for several years now, and yeah,
Right, so
it's like, DNA looks the way that it does, and yeah, you're gonna say, well, that's God. And if DNA looked completely different, you're gonna say that's God, because anything's gonna fall within what God is capable of doing, right?
Right, exactly. And the idea is that another way of saying this is that because nothing can disconfirm God, because everything is consistent with God. There's a special phrase we like to use for that, or a proposition, that it's true that there can't be evidence for God. Because what evidence is something that can confirm an explanation. And if you didn't have that evidence, it would disconfirm, right? So a very quick example. Let's say I want to know whether there's a horse in my bathroom, okay? So what should I see, right? I should see an animal that's bigger than me with a tail and hooves, right? And if I go in there, if I see those things, that's evidence, right? Why? Because it confirms the thing that I'm thinking about, right? But if I were to go to my bathroom, I saw none of that. Suddenly what happens is that it falsifies that proposition that there is a horse in my bathroom. That's to say, the horse in my bathroom is false. But notice God doesn't work that way. Let's take the bathroom example, okay? Let's say I want to know whether there's a God in my room, okay? I look in there. Doesn't matter what I see, it can't disconfirm it, okay? It can't disconfirm it, which means that there can't be something that disconfirms it or confirms it, because everything is consistent with God, or a disembodied mind that's all powerful, all knowing, and supposedly all good. Okay. So another way of what I'm saying, I'll reiterate because it can be confusing, is that there's no such thing as evidence for God, right? So when someone gives you empirical data and says, "Hey, evidence," boom, give them the argument and say, "Hey, if you didn't have that data, would that disconfirm God?" They would say no. Well, then how's that evidence, right? Because if that data wasn't there, if you had the opposite data, whatever that means, it's not like God doesn't exist.
Well, and I definitely would agree with you that there can't be evidence, like, say, for a deist God. So for a God that, is only its only concern would be the running of the universe, and the micro organic atoms that are human beings on that one little planet way in the distance. It's not going to really care about that, so it's not going to leave evidence of itself. But we're talking, when you're talking about the God of Abraham specifically, that God wants you to believe in him, and he wants you to be able to come to him for some whatever reason, right? So I would think that God would leave evidence, and the fact that we can't have any evidence of that God, to me, is just more evidence of no God.
Yeah.
Do you
So
understand what
I
I'm
think I know
saying?
what you're saying. I think I know what you're saying, and you can interrupt me if I have
Oh no, yeah,
misrepresented
go
you.
for it. Yeah.
Let's say my concept of God is that he would send Jesus to die on the cross. Okay, so that's to say that what's essential to my God concept is that that is true. Okay, well, there's a falsifiable claim there, right? Because if you solve no Jesus, right, then your concept of God is just faulty, right? It's just that God doesn't exist. The God that would send Jesus down to die for you does not exist. But now notice that um, I could be a Christian, and then you give me evidence that Jesus didn't exist, and then I might just say, okay, well, God doesn't exist, or I have the option of saying I was wrong about my God concept. And the thing is, that what I'm trying to say here is that even if you take the Bible, right, and let's just say in principle, just as a hypothetical, you showed every empirical data that went against Christianity, and you showed it to the Christians, and all the Christians realized that there's something wrong with the Christian God, right? I don't see why they couldn't just say, well, there's still a God. It just doesn't have those properties that we interpreted in the Bible. So remember, what I came here to do is argue against a theism, right? I Christianity, you might define Christianity in a way where, look, it's a God that would do this necessarily. Okay. And then you can fight against that God, right? But I'm just saying that they could just revise their concept, say Christianity is false, and then still be theists.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would agree with that, and you know, I think that it's why it's important to understand the particulars of the religion you're fighting against, and yeah, like I've always said, like to have a deist perspective of God, for me, if you're proving that every religion is wrong, you can still believe in a God and just think that humans don't have an understanding for it, right? Like, so I don't know. To me, the argument, it's never been about trying to convert people away from their God. For me, it was just Vinny. But I yeah, I don't think that just even if you prove to a Christian that their Christian concepts are wrong, doesn't necessarily mean that you make them an atheist. In fact, you probably just set them along a path of searching, like I went through,
Right.
which
Like a
eventually
path of
led me.
heresy.
Yeah, it eventually led me to atheism. But not all people are going to land in the same place on that journey.
Right. So that's the first approach. That's the first example that I want to give is that you have people like, for instance, there was a debate between James Fodor and Inspiring Philosophy yesterday. What Inspiring Philosophy gave is his digital argument for God, or his quantum physics digital argument. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it. It was something along the lines of that. And he started the debate saying, "Hey, I'm not defending Christianity. I'm defending atheism." Well, this is a case where my argument goes through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the idea is that if we're just talking about a mind that doesn't have a body that's all powerful and all knowing, right? There can't be evidence for such a thing, right? And so, given quantum physics, given DNA, given anything that you observe, is not going to be able to disconfirm it, which means that there can't be evidence for it because everything's consistent with its existence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Yeah. So now, if we want, so remember what the last 10 minutes was just to address what happens when a theist gives empirical observations to support their claim. Right? Notice it's just with respect to empirical observations. Now, there are some theists that will agree with you. For instance, when I was a Christian about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I would say I actually acknowledged it, right? So I don't think there can be evidence for God. I believe in God for what we call in philosophy, a priori reasons or a priori justifications, right? Which is to say that I don't look into the world for empirical data for to justify my belief in God. I think about the world, or I think about concepts, right? And I come to the conclusion that God exists. So that might seem really weird, but for example, something like certain cosmological arguments are a priori. You don't need to do any investigation of empirical data to throw in a cosmological argument. Same with the ontological argument for God, where you're saying that, look, given God's nature, he has to exist, and here's my argument, right? If I have an idea of God, then God must exist in reality, given that he's the greatest conceivable being I can think of, right? I'm not saying these arguments work. I'm saying that people argue on the basis of
Hmm.
reasons and concepts to get you to the God conclusion. They might even agree with you saying that, hey, yeah, I don't think the empirical data can show God because I think God is necessary and empirical data is contingent thing. The empirical data could have been different in a different world, right? But God is consistent throughout worlds. So I agree with you, Mr. Atheist, that there can't be evidence for God. Rather, I have arguments for God. Okay. I'm going to take a breath to make sure everything is digested.
Oh yeah,
Um,
the teleological argument is something, like I've fought a lot against, and yeah, it's not really asking for empirical evidence. It's just making arguments, and a lot of that argumentation is just inferring a god there. I know, like I'll let you catch your breath. And you mentioned inspiring philosophy, and I think that inspiring philosophy has a lot of good arguments sometimes. It's just unfortunate he never argues for his Christian God. He argues for theism, as you said, but very, very rarely have I actually heard him defend his Christian God, and yet he claims to be a Christian. I think that that's a very weak position to have.
um, I can sort of sympathize with that. It's not. The idea is that like the early Christians didn't give. Well, so what you're saying is you're not so much interested in what the philosophers call natural theology, which is the idea of giving broad arguments for like things like deism and theism. So if you study the cosmological argument, the ontological argument, the teleological argument, all the argument from reason, these are all arguments from natural theology. They don't support a particular religion. Okay, so it seems like
Hmm.
you're saying something like,
I agree with
well,
that wholeheartedly. Yeah, like that.
yeah,
That's what I called out. When Khalil Allah said, the cosmological argument leads him to Islam. I'm like, how? I can see it leading you to deism, but I don't see how it leads you to Islam, to Allah.
yeah, I think that he just appeals to like problems with the Trinity. But given I don't know, I haven't really heard him out in terms of why
Yeah,
the
neither have
Quran.
I. To be fair, I should probably hear him out. So.
Yeah, I've never heard him out in terms of why the Quran supports Islam rather than Christianity. But
Hmm.
I would guess it has to do something with the Trinity. But anyways, maybe to wrap up the video, I know this is a short video, but short is sweet. It encourages viewers to watch the video, not be deterred by 5 hours of me talking. Um, so I
Yeah,
want to go
we
over
both had
my
things to do today, so we'll make sure that the next one's a little bit longer, and maybe actually have some disagreement between us.
sure, sure, yeah. I wasn't here to
Yeah,
disagree. I was
yeah, we weren't
giving.
doing that today.
Yeah, because there's plenty. Trust me, Rage. I don't know if you know, but I did a really critical video of my channel of you, and it wasn't very nice. So, I
Uh,
mean, I didn't call you name. Well, maybe I
I'm
called you
used
name.
to it. Like I said, what I get from some people, constructive criticism, hardcore criticism, being hard on me. I don't take much issue with that. I welcome it. It's the sinking to the lowest depths is what I take issue with.
I understand that. Yeah. So to wrap up the video, I'm going to give you my version of the problem of evil. Okay. That my what I all I mean by this is that I've taken other people's. I didn't come up with this argument in the sense that I came up with like what's wrong with the concepts. I just expressed the argument very differently in a way where I think addresses a lot of various responses. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen and we're gonna go through basically four premises. Okay, they shouldn't be that difficult to go over. But if you memorize these four premises, you have it. You actually have something against the theists that they're going to have to respond to. I think, and it's going to be very difficult for them. So I think that it would inspire fruitful philosophical conversation between you and the theist, right? So, and as to not give a horrible argument against theism. So let's go to. I'm going to share my screen in just a second for this argument. But this is, like I said, to reiterate, this is my the way I express the problem of evil.
The problem of evil probably, it used to be my favorite argument. Now I think the interpretation arguments kind of replaced that, but that's because it's new and I'm into that now.
So you're going to hear a little bit of my keyboard. I apologize for the keyboard.
Good.
But okay, so let's just start with this, right? God actualizes all events he should actualize. Okay? So I'm using actualize because there are theists that use that word, and the most sophisticated theists will use that word. So all it means is make true. Okay, so God makes true all events that he should make true. This is another way of expressing the property of all goodness, right, or omnibenevolence, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to misspell omnibenevolent, so I just put all goodness. Okay, so the second one, right? God knows, and sorry, the way I'm presenting the argument is this way. It's not going to be valid in the form of like a formal argument. It's going to be something like some philosophers, what they do is they give you 3 or 4 premises, and they say one of these must be false. Okay, so just keep that in mind. This is not modus ponens, a hypothetical syllogism. It's not any of the stuff. It's what philosophers like to do when they approach an issue at a prima facie. That means on the face of it. They look at the set of premises and they say, well, there's something's wrong here. Okay, so God knows about all actualized events, right? This is just saying that what? He's all knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, omniscient. Then we have, okay, so we got, I've drawn a blank, but it is going to be embarrassing if I don't come up with the third and fourth. This is the idea that, there are some events that should not happen. What is this saying? This is saying there is evil.
Yep.
Okay. So look, there are very few people that are going to say that the Holocaust is something that should have happened, right? There's very few people that think that rape should have happened. When there's an instance of rape, we're going to say that should have not happened. That's an event that should have not happened to you. Okay. So this is if they deny the third premise, they've bit a big bullet. That means they can't say anything. No, they would have to say that all events should have happened, stuff like rape, the Holocaust, right? Okay. So, and then the last one, there are events that should not happen. There's one more. So we got all goodness, all knowing. Oh yes, okay. God could have actualized any event he wanted. Something like that. Okay. So I know the word actualize is kind of like it's like a jargony word, but the idea is that there is something wrong here. So let's go through what happens if they reject each premise, right? If they reject the first premise, they're rejecting that God is sovereign, right? That means there's other things that are making things true other than God. Okay. So if they reject the first premise, you push them on the fact that God is not sovereign. Okay. 2, that's pretty obvious. Okay. That if you reject 2, they're saying God doesn't know all about all events, right? And then that would actually cause a tension with, and here 4 can be rephrased as all events are actualized by God. That probably would be a better way of expressing the fourth premise. Okay. Sorry about that. So we said we don't want to reject 2. 3, we just discussed it. Holocaust, rape, right? 4, that kind of sticks with 1 and 4 related. That it's the idea that God's sovereignty is compromised if you reject 4. If you reject 1, you reject God's goodness. So that's it. I might have messed up. I did it from memory, but this is it. So
Yeah, and it's probably exactly why I argue theology as much as I do. It's why I go to the Old Testament as much as I do, because not only do evil things happen in the world that God should should have control over. I could think of right now the famine in Yemen is something that I often talk about. It's going on right now. American hands are all in it, but in the Bible, God orders a lot of these atrocities. So it's not just, God should be stopping some of these things from happening, but God actually encourages some of these things to happen.
mhm. So yeah, but the idea is that this argument goes against is the omni God plus there being evil. Okay,
Mhm.
I'll give you one adequate response is open theism. Okay, open theism defeats the argument because they're rejecting that God knew about knew that he didn't know that there was going to be sin. He didn't know that there were going to be events that should not be actualized.
Well,
Right.
yeah,
So that's what
and
they
I
can do.
think you open yourself and you're embracing an inept God in that point, and why does it even matter at that point?
Yeah, there are different kinds of open theists. There are very sophisticated ones. Some of them say that knowing the future is impossible for any being. Um, so they'll say that it doesn't really compromise God's, I guess, what did you say, potency?
Yeah,
It just
omnipotency. Yeah.
yeah. The idea is that it's impossible to know the future. So, um, no one it doesn't even make sense to say you have the power to see the future, right? But
I agree.
I'm not defending that position. I'm just telling you that in case you might see a sophisticated open theist, they'll just say it's not a big deal because it doesn't make sense to say that one can or has the power to know future contingencies or future brute contingencies.
Well, yeah,
But
and I think a lot of arguments are like that. Like the interpretation argument. There's ways for certain kinds of Christians to really weasel out of it. Probably open theism would be another way to weasel out of that argument. But then you're kind of rejecting what you claim to believe in at that point, because the Christian God is a God that can see in the future, has the Book of Life, has you know all these stupid things that we've heard about forever.
yeah, but that's all I wanted to share today. I mean, I don't. You
Oh
can.
yeah, no, I definitely appreciate you coming on. I know the chat's getting a little bored because we're not disagreeing, but I'm really trying to open myself up to learning about philosophy. Now, the problem of evil is something that I am fairly familiar with. I've done really in-depth videos on that, and I think that it is pretty much a good argument. But you are exactly right that there is open theism, and even some Christians out there that will tell you they're Christian and reject some of those premises. And I don't understand how they get themselves there. And that's kind of what I'm interested in learning about philosophy is how do you get yourself there? When I spoke about inspiring philosophy, I see him do that a lot. And it's like, how can you call yourself a Christian if you don't truly believe in the Christian God?
Right. And I will say I personally don't think they work, but the point is that if you learn something like this argument and they have responses, you have a fruitful discussion that you can have. You learn from each other, whether
Mm-hmm.
I just really like philosophy because I like that, the sort of hot potato game where with like who has a rebuttal or response is fun to me. Um, but yeah, I do have a channel. I think I'm also being featured in Guts and Gibbets channel. We're going to do philosophy of biology. We're doing a video series on that, and that's going to be on Wednesday, and I'll eventually have
That's
that on my
awesome.
channel.
I'm
But
I'm a big fan of Gutsick. Somebody in the chat, I don't know what's. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Somebody was asking about Arn Ra. What is there
oh,
something
Aaron
going
Ra,
on with that?
yeah, well, I think Aaron Ra knows his biology, knows his evolution. I think if you're interested in those things, he's great. If you're interested in philosophy of religion, if you're interested in justifying atheism and rejecting theism, I think Aaron Ra is pretty worthless with respect to that. Now, that's my view. I think it seems like he's a nice guy. I have nothing personally against him. I think, like I said, if you're interested in that creationism versus evolution debate, he might be great, but he's not interesting with respect to philosophy of religion. and
Well,
the atheist.
I've never really seen him try to get philosophical, and I would categorize myself as the same way. Yeah, I'm trying to learn now, but I've never that's never been a thing for me, and I think that atheism needs to get out of being, for philosophers, or this white male thing for the sophisticated white man, as he's drinking his brandy and smoking his cigars and having these philosophical conversations in their parlors. No, I think atheism should be for everybody, and I think people like Arn Ra, and myself, we kind of represent that. Arn Ra, when it comes to biology, when it comes to creationism, I don't think that there's anybody better. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
disputing that. I don't
yeah.
want to dispute that. I just think that this is my personal opinion. I just think that the evolution versus creationism debate is archaic to me.
Well,
I'm not.
I agree there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think creationism has been so thoroughly destroyed that it's like, why waste time anymore?
Well,
But
let's be real. For me, again, once again, to me, like if I talk to a sophisticated flat earther, I'd get destroyed. Okay, like
oh yeah,
I
me
take a
too.
lot of. I would just get destroyed if I talk to a very sophisticated creationist. I could only offer philosophical arguments against theism. I wouldn't be able to dispute their empirical data because I don't know anything about it. Okay, Aaron Ra, if you want to dispute the empirical data that they're giving, someone like Aaron Ra might be really useful, right? But I just retract into, hey, look, it doesn't matter what empirical data you gave, right? Because I think look at this argument instead, because if this argument goes through, the empirical data doesn't do anything anymore, right? Because this is more fundamental. If you believe in an omni God, and and you think there's evil, it doesn't matter what the world looks like in terms of empirical data. You've got a conceptual problem that you need to figure out.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and this is, it's became painfully aware that I need to at least understand philosophy to the point that I can argue, and I think I'm gonna like the arguing part of it because I've always liked to argue. So the one thing I'm not gonna like, math turns me off. So like the math part of philosophy, I'll never get into that. Never.
Matt Powell.
Math.
Oh, math.
Yeah.
Oh, like philosophy of math. Yeah, it's mind-boggling. The good thing is that you can do philosophy of religion very, very, very well and not know anything about math or anything like that. So,
Yeah, yeah, and
anyway,
that's the thing. Like, you don't have to know the math part. So yeah, I'll never get into the math part. But I am intrigued, and I've actually been enjoying the reading. I thought it'd be more boring than what it's been.
what are you reading?
Right now, Plato, The Last Days of Socrates.
Okay. Well, I'm reading a little bit about the pre-Socratics right now. So,
And I
I
had
don't know.
this. The next book is Aristotle. It's this huge book, but I'm only going to read a couple of the ones in there, and then because I want to get through the ancients, but I really want to. I want to hit the 1600s, and then I want to hit the moderns.
Yeah. If you could share my screen
Oh
one more
yeah,
time. Um, this is a book that I would recommend to anybody that is interested in philosophy, but it is it's just,
yeah. I think I
they
wrote that
found
down the last time I talked to you.
this is a very good book. He's alive right now. He's a philosopher popularizer. Um, he very very well written, very introductory. You don't have to have any background. Um, so highly recommend this book. It's not. You could do really good philosophy, know very little about the pre-Socratics and the ancients like Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle. So just keep that in mind. If you want to do philosophy, and I'm just talking to you, Rage, you can start with contemporary philosophy. Contemporary
Oh
philosophy. To
yeah.
me, you can. It's like doing science. If you're interested in science, you don't need to know how Aristotle was doing science,
Well,
right?
for me, it's an OCD thing. Like I want to start at the beginning and go through every damn book that's ever been written, and that's just my OCD thing. I am going to jump around a little bit, but I read the history of Western philosophy, and
You did the Russell book.
I went through that. I'm going to read it again and go chapter by chapter and do
Okay,
reviews.
well, Russell's fun to read. A little, there are some inaccuracies in that book, and That's not coming from me. That's coming from the consensus view.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah,
if
I'm
you're
sure.
interested in the history of philosophy, read this book, History of Philosophy. I love this book so far. I absolutely love AC. I think he's still alive. AC Grayling.
Yeah,
This is
I'll
a
check it out, man.
very
I,
good book.
I'm devoting the next couple years to this, so I'm
Yeah,
all in.
if you've already read Russell, just move on to Grayling, and you can see the comparisons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I do appreciate you coming on, man, and it was a good conversation. Like I said, I was saying in the chat, I'm sure we'll come to some disagreements in the future, but I definitely wanted to have you on and show, like, hey, I can have Danny on, and he's not going to get booted. I love John Peterson, but John does his own thing sometimes. So I'm really glad that you came on, and definitely next time, hopefully we'll both have some more time and we can really kind of hash out some things, which I wouldn't know what they would be because I don't get around much anymore and watch a lot of what's going on.
Yeah, my channel is called Phil Talk. It has a red logo, so unfortunately, I did not Google Phil Talk before I made the name. There's this weird Filipino, I think, YouTube channel that promotes. I don't know, but anyways, don't subscribe to that channel. Subscribe to the one with the red logo if you're interested in what I'm saying.
Send me the link in an email, and I'll get it into the description and all of that for you.
All right, y'all have a good one. Thank you.
All right, yep, have a good one, man. All right, so I think that, I want to open myself up, and I want to, that's one thing I've never done on the channel. Let me get over here, or let me turn these off. So, come on. I see LPP is in the side chat, doing his thing. What's up, LPP? No love for you, my man. No love. Let's get all this stuff off. All right. Let's fix my stuff. Before I get out of here today, and I do have to go to works in the next couple hours, so I got to start getting ready and all that good stuff. I do want to premiere the video that I put out on the new channel. All of my edited content is going to the new channel. And on the new channel, I'm trying really hard not to curse. And like when I announced it, people were like, how are you going to do that? You're going to fail. And you weren't wrong. I tried really hard filming this video not to curse a single time, and still 2 F-bombs slipped through. I beeped them out. So yeah, trying to take a different approach. And this kind of hits on what I was talking about in this stream. Like I just put out this video, kind of just giving some random thoughts that I have on why I think that theists are one of the best evidences against the existence of God. So I'm going to go ahead and just play this live. I'm not going to do this much on the channel. I do want that other channel to grow organically, but I know a lot of you really enjoyed the edited content. If you want the edited content, that will be on the Godless one. I'll make sure to get the link into the side chat, and I'll put it in the description. I didn't get it in there before. I'm going to start really doing that. So if you missed the edited content, it's over on the Godless one. It is going to be slightly different. I'm not focusing on response videos, but really trying to go harder at religion and being a more hardline atheist. So with that being said, we're going to premiere Why Theists Are Evidence God Doesn't Exist. I think it would take this long to get to my second video. Things happen, life happens. I knew at first this channel would be somewhat erratic, but I definitely didn't think it would take this long. But today I'm going to talk about why I think that theist might be one of the best proofs that there is no God. Welcome, my fellow godless ones. Today, I want to talk about why I think theist might be one of the best proofs or one of the best pieces of evidence against the existence of any God. Now, I've been on YouTube for almost 4 years now, and I've dealt with a lot of different theists. I've talked with a lot of different theists. And while sometimes they might try to play team sports here on YouTube, every single one of them is different. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think that theists themselves are some of the best evidence against the existence of God. And I'm going to tie a little bit of the interpretation argument into it. The interpretation argument is one of my favorite arguments right now. I'm not going to go into that too deep. I do plan on making a video dedicated to the interpretation argument and breaking it down. But the interpretation argument is going to be kind of where I start because, if God was real, logic dictates to me that its impact would be consistent, but it's not. there are different religions in the world, religions alone, different gods. There's not just one God, there's different gods. And a lot of those gods claim to be the creators of the universe, or claim to be the arbiter of all morality, claim to be the truth and the light, whatever. But there's different ones. Like, which one is it? And if you would think that if there really was some great God, some God that created this entire universe and it actually cares about the human beings on this planet, that, you know, the signals wouldn't be getting crossed there. That they would all pretty much be in agreement. Yep, that's God. That's the creator of the universe, because that thing has to be that powerful. But even delving deeper into it, just inside the individual religions, all the different denominations, all the different interpretations, all the different, you know, ways to think of this being, to think what this being wants from us. And right there, that in itself to me is great evidence that this being just does not exist, that it is completely absent from reality. I mean, just within Christianity, we have thousands of denominations, thousands of different ways to look at the Bible, and yet somehow, some way, when I look at the Bible, Christians tell me I'm wrong. I mean, you have your Baptists, your Presbyterians, your this, your that, all of them f***ing hates Catholics. And even within Catholicism, you have your more conservative Catholics, you have your progressive Catholics, you have this, you have that. You have arguments, are gay people evil and abominations, or are they just, you know, sinful, and you gotta hate the sin and not the sinner? And even within the denominations, you have people that can't agree on doctrine. You have people vying for power. You have people playing politics, trying to get on a higher pedestal than the one beneath them. All of this is indication of humanity. None of it is indication of a God. And getting into those individual peoples, some you have are decent people, some are good people, and they really try to live a good Christian life, and they just go about their life trying to be good people. And then you also have medium type people who, you know, go about their lives, they try to be decent, but, you know, they hate gay people. And I say moderate because then you have the extremes who want to kill gay people. You have the extremes that want to instill theocracy. You have the extremes that want to have their quiverful movement and have 20 kids to create an army for Christ so they can, you know, destroy this secular society. That alone to me is evidence that there is no consistent God of the universe out there dictating morality or dictating, you know, itself onto these people. And that is one of the fundamental reasons why I say that theists themselves are one of the biggest evidences against the existence of God. Most religions would tell you that their God or gods are the arbiters of morality, and yet throughout history some of the most awful acts have been committed in the name of God. I only have to bring to mind witch trials. I only have to think about the Spanish Inquisition. I only have to think about the Crusades. I only have to think about how the Israelites committed genocide upon the Canaanites. You know, I mean, throughout history, some of the worst deeds have been done in the all-powerful name of God. And it's almost like the theists, they know it, so they have to make up these personal revelations. You know, yeah, you know, what you say about the Bible, I can't really dispute it. Some will try, but, you know, the Bible says what it says, but they'll say, you know, I had a personal revelation, and I know that God is real, and I know that God isn't the monster that you speak, but he's a God of love, blah, 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 blah. And this happens across all religions. I remember speaking to a polytheist, a pagan, somebody within the Greek pantheon, a Hellenist, and she told me about this personal dream that she had that showed the armor of Athena, I believe it was, one of those gods. And, you know, she looked it up, and that armor was exactly real in real life, just like she had dreamed about it. And I, as an atheist, have two options there. I can either be a good friend and, you know, be really uncomfortable and silent, or am I supposed to be just some, you know, hard-lined atheist and tell her blatantly what I think, that I think you just made that up. I don't think people can have dreams like that. I don't think that there's some psychic link from a God that's going to be that. And I'm sorry, but you probably found that armor and you're telling me a story now. But, you know, I was a friend to the person at the time, so I couldn't say that, because if I said that, that would make me a bad friend. But looking back on it in retrospect, that's exactly what I should have done. I should have went hard at that. I should have went as hard at that as I did at what the Christians say. Because, and I am trying to make a really big effort not to curse on this channel, but I will make exceptions. So, because it's just bullshit. And finally, most modern theists don't do the things that their God actually loves, that their God is known for loving. And here I speak of sacrifice. Modern Christians don't sacrifice bulls because, well, they'll say the new covenant changed all of that, but I don't see how. Their God always loved that. Their God had a particular affinity for the smell of the burnt flesh. And God doesn't change. This master of the universe, the arbiter of all morality, the omni-God that it is. Theists don't do those things because in the modern age, those things are unacceptable. And, you know, God doesn't even matter in that equation. It's just unacceptable. But even beyond that, most theists don't go around living their lives like they actually believe that this God is watching them. For instance, you know, I remember working in several factories, and most of the people in those factories are Christians because most of the people in this country are Christians. And yet these Christian men, happily married, in positions of management, positions of power, always, every single one of them would be hitting on the young, you know, interns, the young temps on the line, you know, trying to get something on the side going on. They curse, they say awful things, but yet they go to church every Sunday. And then I could just draw upon the theists that I have spoken to here on YouTube, the icky taints of the world, and just the reprehensible behavior that they are willing to attribute, the Matt Powell's, the I'm willing to lie for Jesus, attributing it to spiritual warfare. And I have to say that I truly believe theists themselves are one of the biggest evidences against the existence of any God. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my patrons for being great supporters of my Let's make it, let's not do another 10-minute spree where I'm not talking because you can't hear me. So let's copy the link. Let's throw it in the side chat. I couldn't see the side chat as we were going through that. That's the new video on the new channel, The Godless One. If you like the edited content, go subscribe to The Godless One. This channel now is just solely going to be for me ranting and raving. I don't really have a lot of rage left, and oftentimes now it seems to be being sparked by people that shouldn't be, like last night. But I've gotten most of my anger out towards Christianity. This is going to be a live streaming channel. I'm not, I'm kind of turned off now by open rooms. I don't really, I'm not really planning on doing open rooms anymore. For the time being, but this is going to be just a straight streaming channel where I stream and I'm able to be rage and curse and do all those things. And the other channel, I'm going to try to play by YouTube rules and go a little bit more in depth, not just response videos, but more videos like that. And I'm about to start this series of me learning philosophy. I'm going to break down the history of Western philosophy chapter by chapter, make that a long series. And I'll probably do videos on the other books I'm reading, Plato, and next I'll be reading Aristotle. I have How to Think Like a Roman Emperor by Marcus Aurelius. I have a few books over there. Danny has suggested a few books. Other people have suggested a few books. And I'm going to be learning philosophy, but I'm never going to be one that's going to put much stock into it. Because I agree with what I saw in the chat through most of this stream today, is that I don't think it's important when it comes to the conversation of religion. As I said, I'm an atheist that I read the Bible, and eventually just the stupid shit in the Bible was too hard for me to believe. I went on this long journey of trying to find God, the real God, as me and Danny were kind of talking about earlier. And eventually I came to the conclusion that there just are no gods. And that's my conclusion. And that's what I'm going to start trying to give you reasoning for in a lot of my videos now over on that other channel. I'm not going to be focused on responding to Christians, because Christians are generally shit. Theists, in my opinion, are generally shit. There's some good ones out there. I got some really good friends that are theists. But too many of them are willing to do just about anything, especially if they really believe and they think that this is some kind of spiritual warfare going on. They're willing to sink to any level for that. Not interested in talking to them anymore. But who knows? Maybe one day again. I do like talking to people in a one-on-one atmospheres. I think that's what I'm going to really be focused on when it comes to conversations for a while. I want to thank you guys for being here and hanging out with me today. I got to get to work here in about 2 hours. I like to go in early. And I got to get my mentality right for it, because it's going to hurt. But I did have my big test, so I'm just waiting on my call from the doctor, and we can hopefully get this surgery done and life can get back to normal for me. That's what I'm looking forward to more than anything. And wow, I got it on the wrong screen. Let me put it over there so you're not looking at a screen within a screen within a screen. All right. Thought it was a good talk. Still a little pissed about last night, but hey, what are you going to do? People are going to think what they're going to think. People are going to be able to rationalize what they're going to rationalize, support what they're going to support. I do once again want to send out, a big thank you to Speed for his gracious email. Speed's always been a good dude to me. I want to thank all of you for being in the chat. If you haven't seen or subscribed to the new channel and you do want to see that edited content, I know a lot of you just like live streams, but a lot of people like both, and a lot of people just like the edited content. So I need to make that, available for everybody. So I'm going to do this a little bit. I'm not going to do it a lot, though, showing a video like that. But I think it's going to be important to do it a little bit until everybody knows where they can go to find that content. And hopefully, playing by YouTube rules, it'll grow and it'll do something. That's my goal for it. So I want to thank you all for being here. Usually I don't get this many on a Sunday afternoon that I had. I think at one point we were around 25, 30 people. Usually on a Sunday it's really hard to do that. And I know most of you like it when I'm really going hard. But I don't know Danny that well, and I'm sure we're going to have disagreements, and we'll come to those. But I wanted to give him a chance just to come in and have a good, pleasant conversation to start. I do that sometimes. Y'all have a good day.